Hello there, and welcome to day 98 of A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. So as I continue through my BAFTA nominations coverage in the run-up to the live stream on Sunday, I am watching a Best British Film nominee with the Irish set drama Calm with Horses. This is, I suppose this is sort of the definition of your grassroots, independent, very back to basics storytelling film. It really, I had the very strong vibe of the kinds of style that short filmmakers like to use. And there is something very, very straightforward. The principle, simple not basic, really comes to mind. There's something very simple about this. Nothing basic. It's not done easily, but it's done simply to tell a very straightforward and yet well-made character piece. So the story follows a man named Douglas, played by Cosmo Jarvis, who is he's an enforcer for a local Irish gang in his town, and this is a real tragic character piece about someone trapped in their who's very resigned to their circumstance, and yet there is something very sad and fatal about this man's story. It has a real, this is on my list of films going forward, but it had a very sort of, from what I'm aware of, an on the waterfront vibe. Someone who could have had opportunities, but the way things have gone, never got to see those opportunities come to fruition. Notwithstanding the fact that it's that he is a boxer as well. Was a boxer who, because of life circumstances, ended up getting involved with this crime family. In terms of gangster films, it's interesting. It's the genre of the gangster film is more complex sometimes than you can give it credit for. Of course, when we think gangsters, the instinctive go-to is something like a Martin Scorsese or a Francis Ford Coppola. These grand gangster tales, and they have their place, and they are defining genre films. But really, there is something of a scale or a spectrum to the gangster film. You have your big, lavish, organised crime, which is very much about the decadence of the gangster lifestyle, the intoxication of it. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you have what you might call your poverty gangster film. And British independent filmmaking and British filmmaking generally is much better at representing what you might call the impoverished gangster lifestyle. That's, gangsters who are brought about by the fact that, you have these small communities where everyone is poor and undereducated, and frankly, there's just nothing to do. And so you have like a family, like the Dervlers in this film, who are just almost becoming gangsters was just sort of an inevitability. It was just this is the only thing we can think to do. And of course they start to draw in people around them like Douglas, where it's just because again it's easier, I suppose. It's straightforward, and there's something quite lawless about it. I don't know much about the Irish context, and I'm sure people who are more savvy in terms of Irish storytelling, contemporary Irish storytelling, especially in these rural settings, have more of a context for this, but there is something almost Western about it, almost like Irish Western, where there is no real law. There is they mention the guards, which are the police as just being useless, but we never see them, and we never really get a sense that there's any pushback against the crime, this crime family. But yeah, you primarily see it through the lens of Douglas, and I think what also makes this a really nice character piece, and not just a gangster film in the tropes that we're used to seeing. The story follows him both being this enforcer, having to do pretty nasty things, but what makes this character sympathetic is that he has a son with autism, and you genuinely get this sense of internal struggle with the character, where he's genuinely trying to be a good dad, and he tries to get on with his partner Ursula, played by Neve Alger, and trying to do his best for them, whilst still doing pretty nasty things and being involved in this sort of faux decadent lifestyle of hanging around, doing crime, or dealing out crime, I suppose, and then partying, but in a much more stripped down, much more realistic way, I suppose. So it's mostly them being at pubs or being at houses and then doing drugs or drinking or getting into fights. But it's so stripped down. It really has that same kind of vibe as Train Spotting, where it doesn't advertise the lifestyle in a way that a Martin Scorsese might, where again it's the wealth and the decadence of it and the all-consuming nature of crime. It's actually much more realistic in terms of it's kind of nasty, and you get involved because of your life circumstances, but no one would elect to join this lifestyle. And then of course you have Barry Keoghan who plays the friend, I suppose, of Douglas, although he's sort of more his handler, and he's a member of this family. And those three, I suppose, Cosmo Jarvis, Neve Alger, and Barry Keoghan, are really the heart of this story. They are three very well performed characters. All three of them, you really get a great. The ensemble. If you also factor in some of the other actors like Ned Dennehy or David Wilmot. But those three, they are a demonstration of what indie filmmaking and this very stripped down, simple storytelling does, which is to really push forward upcoming actors who are possibly the future of the industry. These are actors who you've seen in TV series and films in minor ways, and yet. In Cosmo Jarvis's case, it's not long ago that in a previous episode I was talking about him in Lady Macbeth, and he really demonstrates the range between that role and this. And within this role, the fact that he plays someone who is not very bright, there is an implication that he too had autism, or has autism, or is on the spectrum, on the autistic spectrum in some capacity. But the fact that he is this undereducated, slightly thuggish, well, he's very thuggish, but then also slightly slow and not very, he demonstrates a sense of he's quite comprehensive. He understands things, but other people perceive him as being quite stupid, and I think to portray that takes a lot of ability, because it's very hard to play someone who with that sort of lack of intellect and that real, having to work things out slowly, and and also not being able to portray his emotions very well. That takes an actor with great poise who has to do a lot with a little, and Cosmo Jarvis really does nail that. And so, as I say, this really demonstrates their abilities as actors. And the story is engaging. It's very simple. It's very there's no big twists or turns from it. What really sells it is the characters and their relationships, and the fact that you care a lot about where some of these people end up and what's going to happen as it escalates and as it gets to a darker and darker place. I mean, it starts with very dark implications, but as the film goes on, it gets to a significantly darker place by the third act, and I think it's but really it is just about performance and about great character work, and really there is something about the setting, the fact that you have this real dirtiness, this real there's a certain grime that you'd normally attribute to films that are sort of set in inner cities and gangster films that are much more urban centric, but there is something quite grim and gritty about this setting, even though when you look at the long shots and the wide shots, you get this sense of like rolling hills and beautiful grass, but there is something quite isolating about it, and the fact that certain characters feel trapped and like there's no way to escape this life and what's going and what they're involved in. But as I say, it is a really, really nice film. I think it's really well done. It's Nick Rowland's feature debut, and I genuinely think that this is, as a first film or first feature, this is a great first film. This is a great demonstration of ability and competence. And I know in previous videos I've talked about competence being damning with faint praise, but in this case I really mean like that sense of well shot, getting great performances out of your actors and telling this very well paced and emotionally engaging story. And yeah, I genuinely think this is a great film, really good film. I don't know where in terms of the nominations it has, which are for Best British Film, Best Supporting Actress for Neve Alga, and Best Supporting Actor for Barry Keoghan. Is that right?
Yeah.
Where they'll lie in this, of course, when I get to the live stream, I'll much more thoroughly discuss the nominations once I have a better perspective on that category. In terms of Best British Film, I mean, this is going to be a really difficult year. I was just looking over the category, and there are still some that I'll want to cover, and others which I just won't get the opportunity to, as I've previously mentioned. But between this and Rocks, and some of the others, this is a great range, and it's going to be a difficult year in terms of disseminating which one will be the best film. But yes, so please, as I've mentioned before, please join me at 7 p.m. on Sunday, where I'll be covering the BAFTA ceremony via live stream. If you have enjoyed this video, please click like and subscribe to the channel. Please hit the little bell if you want to get notifications. And we're almost hitting 100 videos now, so that's a fair range of films. So if please go back through the catalogue and see, have a look at some of my older videos. You could also follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley. I'm always tweeting movie news and trailers, and of course I share links to new uploads when they're when they're ready. Thank you for joining me. Take care.